Welcome to the Evolve Podcast, an open forum on personal growth and cultivating a positive mindset. I'm your host, Joe Fitzpatrick. Today on the show, we have Krissi Vandenberg, who is the Director of Vegan Action based here in Richmond. Vegan Action is a nonprofit that certifies a variety of products, mostly vegan foods, but other types of products as well. And they also promote advocacy for plant-based lifestyles. Welcome to the show, Krissi.
Thanks, Joe.
So tell me, how would a company go about getting certified for any of their products as certified by Vegan Action?
Right. So we do have a trademark logo that companies reach out to us to reserve the right to use on their packaging for their products. And like you said, it is mostly food, but we also certify personal care products, home products, trying to think, dog food, fertilizer. We've certified mattresses, so it's a pretty cool, diverse group of items, but mostly food for sure. So companies with those products have to submit a pretty serious application form. So our definition of vegan means not produced with animal products, byproducts, no processing with animal products or byproducts, and also individual ingredients and the final product not tested on animals. So it's a lot of paperwork, but we know that consumers appreciate this really strict definition of veganism that we've created to go with this logo. So if you're buying something with a certified vegan logo, it's not only free of animal products, but also hasn't been tested on animals. There are other logos out there, cruelty-free, which means no animal testing, but it's not always vegan. So there's plenty of cruelty-free products that have animal products as ingredients.
Right.
There are some vegan logos that are just referring to ingredients, not at all about animal testing. And there is no legal definition of vegan and no government regulations for claiming vegan on a product or using a vegan logo, making your own logo. So that's another reason why consumers really appreciate the certified vegan logo, because they know we've collected all the paperwork, we've verified all of the documents that product meets the guidelines that we have listed.
Yeah. So I've been vegan myself for about 5-6 years now, and as a vegan consumer, I definitely appreciate the transparency when companies are labeling their products as vegan, and there is some gray area, whether it's like saying it's plant-based or cruelty-free, but not necessarily straight up vegan. But I think your organization has established a level of authority, and when you see that certified vegan logo on there, that that it is vegan and cruelty free. So it definitely provides some peace of mind.
Yes, it's definitely appreciated. When I've been with Vegan Action since 1998, and when we were developing the guidelines for the logo, we did a lot of surveys and finding out what's most important to people that identify as vegan. And so that really helped us. And then when we launched the program in the year 2000, we had to really reach out to companies and kind of sell them on the idea of this is something people really want and really value. So of course it's picked up tremendously since the year 2000, and we work with thousands and thousands of companies. We have tens of thousands of products certified vegan. So it's been a great success. And of course, even people that don't identify as vegan or vegetarian, it's something that they still use on occasion, because there are a lot of omnivores these days, or folks that eat vegan sometimes.
Right.
And so it's really been a good selling point for the companies. We do it first and foremost for the consumer since we're a nonprofit, but it's obviously a benefit to companies as well.
Do companies have to pay a fee to have the label on their products?
They do, yes. We have an annual licensing fee, but we do have a sliding scale because we don't ever want the fee to be a deterrent for somebody to apply. So we have a sliding scale. So for smaller, newer companies, it's just $150 a year, and then it caps at $3,000 a year. So that's some of those really larger companies.
Cool. And are you basing that on the level of income for the business?
Yes, so not just for the vegan product, but the annual revenue for that business.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said you started at Vegan Action in '98. When was the organization actually founded?
It was founded in '95 by two
Okay.
UC Berkeley students. And they wanted to be able to eat in the dorm cafeteria, and there were no vegan options. So they started this campaign, collected signatures, got a lot of people involved so that the dorm cafeteria would offer vegan options, and they were really successful. And then they decided to officially start a nonprofit organization for the Berkeley area and Bay Area in particular, and to promote vegan food and vegan options and encourage other people to work with universities to get options available in dorms. So they were definitely ahead of the times a bit.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they registered vegan.org as the URL, so we have the best vegan website ever. So yeah, they just started really small, and it's just grown, and I've been able to be a part of that growth, which has been really, really cool to see it happen.
So does Vegan Action still have offices in the Berkeley area, or did it move all operations to Richmond?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I got involved, the folks that started it were actually moving on to live in other places. And so I became the director, and then I decided to move back to Richmond to go to grad school. So I actually brought Vegan Action with me. So we don't have an office there anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were going to school in Berkeley at the time?
No, I went there after I got my undergraduate degree because I was just so interested in the activism aspect on the West Coast in Northern California. So I really wanted to be able to be a part of that and get some cool experience. But then I decided I wanted to go to grad school, so I moved back.
What was the activism scene like out there at that time?
Amazing. It's just so many people are involved in activism in that area. Of course, there's more people there in general than in Richmond, but there was just like the Food Not Bombs groups were huge, and so many people would come out for Food Not Bombs. There were a lot of protests for all kinds of different political movements when I was there.
Right.
But there was just a really strong, active vegan animal rights scene there that was really awesome to be a part of.
When did you become vegan?
In '95.
Okay, so around that time that you moved out there.
Yes. Yep.
What was the spark for you that made you want to change your life in that direction?
Yeah. Becoming vegan or moving out there?
Becoming vegan after
Okay.
you had moved out there.
Yeah. There was a pretty active animal rights vegan scene in Richmond in the '90s. That was really great. So me and a couple other folks started a group called Richmond Animal Rights Network, where we would do protests. So we did VCU it was called MCB at the time, for conducting animal research, circus demos, zoo demos, puppy mills, and of course, in the meantime, promoting veganism. A lot of us were also really involved with Food Not Bombs. And there were a lot of vegans and a lot of animal rights activism. It was really amazing. And when I moved to the Bay Area and then moved back, it was very different. I don't know why there was a shift, but
When did you move back?
I moved back in 2001.
Okay. I mean, I think it's just a different time, you know. The late 90s compared to the early 2000s, culture was shifting in such a way, and maybe there was a little less angst than the 90s,
Yeah.
or at least a calming of the angst for a period of time.
Yeah.
And, I didn't start coming to Richmond until the late 2010s. While I was in school, I would come here for shows, and I moved to Richmond in 2016. So I'm familiar with Richmond as it has been for the past 6 or 7 years. But I know Richmond has changed a lot, in the past 10 years.
Yeah, and especially, I think part of that is that a lot of people have been priced out of Richmond.
Right.
When I moved to Richmond in 91, it was incredibly cheap and affordable to live here.
Yeah.
And that has changed tremendously. There's just been so much urban growth.
Right.
And a lot of people have been priced out.
Yeah,
So I
for
know
sure.
that's part of it.
Yeah, I would say that's been a huge part of it. The growth of VCU.
Yes.
It's a good thing and a bad thing to some extent. As far as rising housing costs and business development, more people moving into the area because it has this reputation of, being affordable compared to other markets like the DC, Northern Virginia area.
For sure, yeah.
And then, you factor in the pandemic and people being at home more often, and, people wanting to live here rather than other places, or moving back from other places. If they were, living elsewhere and they wanted to come back home, just drives the housing market up, which increases, rental rates too.
Right.
And then, you add on that to all of that, the economy not being so great too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what made you decide you wanted to move back yourself?
It was a combination of cost of living in the Bay Area and then wanting to go to grad school. So I had done undergrad at VCU, so I wanted to come back and do that at VCU as well.
What did you study for your?
I got my undergrad in biology and my master's in sociology.
Okay, I got a minor in sociology.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
I always just enjoyed going to those classes, and when I was getting close to graduating, my advisor said, if you just take one more sociology class, you have a minor. I was like, okay, sure. I probably would have wanted to take it anyways.
Yeah.
But the first seed I think that was planted for me in becoming vegan was in a food and culture class that I took, which was a part of the sociology course. And we watched a few documentaries on the food system, and I remember watching Food Incorporated, huge documentary about factory farming and the industrial agriculture in America, and then it may have been in the same class or in another class, but Vegucated, which is an older documentary about people exploring eating vegetarian and vegan. So when I decided that I wanted to become vegan, I remembered those as making an impression on me. But at that point in my life, I guess I wasn't ready to receive that, and I wasn't willing to make that change.
Sure.
But I think those changes, they take time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the importance of seeds. For me, I grew up in Northern Virginia, and so I would go to DC all the time for shows and to hang out, and there were always these outdoor festivals in the summer that were really awesome. And at one of them, I got a PETA pamphlet, and it was about how animals are raised for food. And I've always been an animal lover. Not that you have to be an animal lover to feel the compassion and empathy for what animals go through, but I immediately was like, I can't eat animals anymore. That's it. And I still lived at home, so that was a little challenging with parents and everything, but it worked out. And then I moved to Richmond for college and met some folks that were vegan. And it took me a little while also, especially because in the early 90s it was challenging. And I'm still eating at the dorms, and then there wasn't an Elwood Thompson's, there was no soy milk or veggie burgers in the grocery store or anything at that time. So that was definitely a barrier for me, which thank goodness is no longer a barrier for people. But yeah, so it took me a little while, and then I was like, wait, I can't, dairy, eggs, no, that's just as awful. So, so I think for me personally, being an animal lover already, and then learning that information, there weren't any documentaries out yet at that time, but that was enough for me, where I was like, I can't contribute to this industry whatsoever.
So where were you getting your information from? Were you like reading books or like just talking to people?
Well, so it was definitely talking to people, and also I would just like get into bands that were into vegetarianism, veganism. So that was a really big part as well. Yeah. And then my friends, Elena and Sean, used to volunteer at PETA when it was in DC. So I had a couple of avenues to get some information, but it was really not until I came to Richmond for college and started meeting people, and like then getting people loaning books to me and us having meetings and just kind of learning in that way. It was really amazing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the best way to spread information even now. Like it's great that so many books and articles online and like social media posts and documentaries especially are available, but ultimately we still need to share them with other people, right? And have those conversations about like, what are you eating? Why are you eating that?
Right, absolutely.
What's the effects of this? And it is cool that like when you're in a setting where you might be the only vegan, and you're the only one eating tofu or whatever, like people can ask like, what's that? And you're like, oh, it's tofu, it's great, try it, and you can be an example in that way. That's been the primary source of my advocacy, sharing my experience and sharing what's worked for me, and hopefully others will follow by example.
Yeah, I mean, having those one-on-one conversations are always such a bonus, and also being positive and being able to share personally how awesome it is, how easy it is. And instead of people thinking like, oh, you have to give up so much, you have to sacrifice so much. Instead, it's like, no, actually, I don't see it as a sacrifice. I see it as like this amazing positive choice that I'm making. And I'm just also thinking back to the 90s that there was like one cookbook called the New Farm Cookbook, and then all these awesome like punk food zines that were out. So like Bark and Grass, Soy Not Oi, Raggedy Anarchy, I'm trying to think, there are a couple others.
Those are great titles, by the way.
That we would all share, pass around, Xerox, they were of course like copyright free. And that's how we all learned to cook.
Do you still have any of those?
I have all of them.
Oh, awesome.
I have all of them, yeah.
Do you know if any of them are available online?
Vegan Action was copying and selling them up until 2 years ago. They just weren't selling anymore.
Yeah.
Which hurts my heart because I'm like a zine person, you know, to the core.
Right.
But I understand with the internet, it's so easy to just find recipes and things like that. But
well, I know the zine culture is, you know, making a comeback for sure.
It's not dead.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to get a hold of you and like republish some zines, they could do that.
Yes. We have master copies that we can photocopy.
Awesome, good to know. So, when you decided to move back to Richmond and bring Vegan Action here, what did that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I was not getting paid to do Vegan Action. It was a really small nonprofit that we got donations, but we weren't using them to pay anyone. So that looked like a desk in my apartment for a really long time. And so I would reach out to companies to try to get them certified, work on certification applications. Definitely started doing outreach in the Richmond area as soon as I could. So it was just this very small side project while I worked and went to graduate school. And then it really started to pick up in, I'm gonna say like 2010 or 11, where I was like, okay, I'm getting a lot of applications for certification. I'm getting a lot of emails. This is kind of really getting somewhere. And so I finally hit the tipping point of I need to be available, or someone needs to be available to do this more. And so then I worked part-time at other places, restaurants, coffee shops, wherever. And I taught at VCU for a while as an adjunct professor for the sociology department. So I like had these other gigs going, and then was doing Vegan Action more and more. And then finally in, I think it was 2014, I was like, all right, we're getting enough income from the certification program, from companies paying, so that I can actually do this full time. So that was kind of scary.
I bet.
But I took the leap, and then once I was able to focus on it full time, then it picked up even more. And of course, as you know, at the same time, veganism is becoming a lot more mainstream and popular, and all the companies want to make the vegan products. So it was definitely the right time. And then, not to sum it up too short, but 2023, we have 8 staff members that just work on certification. So it's that huge, it's that popular. So it's amazing. I never would have imagined this, thinking back to 2000, that like this would be my full-time job and we would have a staff working on all this. So it's pretty awesome.
It's very awesome.
Yeah.
So the staff that's working on the certifications, they're just reviewing the applications and verifying the information.
Exactly. Yes.
And then contacting the companies to arrange like the licensing and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you also have a few other staff members, right?
Yeah.
I know Paige, she is primarily responsible for content and like events.
Social media, right, and event organizing, yes. Yeah.
And April, what does she do?
She works part-time. She specifically solicits companies to try to get them certified. Okay. So we all kind of have this shared channel on Slack where we're like, it'd be cool if this was certified. I love this product. It should be certified. And so she does all the digging to find the right person to reach out to try to get them vegan certified.
Cool. Has April tried to like contact like supermarkets to get like all of their like house brand products certified? Is that something y'all are looking into?
I have reached out before. So I've reached out to Kroger and Trader Joe's. Yeah. And the caveat, you might already know this, but grocery store, Trader Joe's brands are another company's products, and a lot of times they're proprietary. So there's a little bit of a challenge there in licensing the grocery stores or the markets to use the logo because it's not their product, so they can't be held liable.
Gotcha.
Right? So our logo is trademarked, so we reserve the right to sue anyone that is misusing our mark. So we have to make sure we have the right people being held accountable that are licensing the logo. So since the grocery stores and such aren't that final company,
Right.
They couldn't, in good conscience or legally,
That makes sense.
sign. Yeah. But that would be pretty cool because again, a lot of them have a generic vegan logo or say vegan on there, but we don't know how they're defining it. So that makes it a little challenging.
Yeah. Is there any level of like oversight to making sure that they're not abusing the logo?
Yes.
And what it represents?
Yes. So we reach out to companies regularly to verify that they're only using the logo on the products that we've approved and that there haven't been any changes or alterations in their recipe or in their ingredients, the manufacturers they use. So we reach out at least once a year and do a whole nother verification. But we do find products that have the logo on them. Some of companies that we're working with and they made an accident. I think in most cases that's true, that they just somewhere in the line of communication of the person that was applying for products to get certified and then a label being sent to the printer, there was some miscommunication. But we have companies that we've busted using our logo that we've never been in contact with.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's even more that make a generic version of the logo, to make it look like it's vegan certified.
So once a month I send out letters, cease and desist letters to companies that are either using our logo or something very similar because of course it's trademarked. So if it's similar in nature to our trademark, they're actually violating trademark laws. So that's we could probably have a full-time person working just on that. So that's unfortunate when that happens, of course.
For sure. So as director of Vegan Action, you're overseeing all the operations of the organization, correct?
Right, yeah. So staff, programming, events, all of that.
And you've been director the whole time the organization has been in Richmond?
Yeah. It's always been wherever I've been. It's followed me. Before the pandemic, the upstairs of my house was a really large converted attic. And that was actually our Vegan Action office for years.
Wow.
And then when we, got the first notice that things were shutting down, we were like, all right, everyone go home. We'll be back here in 2 weeks. And of course that never happened. So everybody still works from home, which, is convenient, saves on transportation.
Yeah, but I know you guys do frequently have organization meetups and retreats, right?
Yes, yeah. So we still plan those get-togethers. There's just some things that happen more organically in person, especially brainstorming and coming up with ideas and plans and organizing. So we still make that happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was the most recent retreat that you guys had, and how was that experience?
Yeah, so we have been working with this co-work space called Gather. And so we rent one of the big rooms in there and bring a whole bunch of vegan snacks and get vegan food delivered. And so we actually did 5 of those in the last few months because we wanted to kind of have that in person, like what's going great with certifying and the application process, what could we do better? So we had a lot of those conversations, brainstorming about how we could do better with social media, and then coming up with new ideas for events because we were not doing events for a long time because of the pandemic. So we
Right.
want to like get back into that as we were before. So tabling at as many festivals as possible, holding different events that with you that are not just for vegans, that are for everybody. That's the whole idea. It's like we love everyone.
Yeah.
We want everyone to be a part of what we're doing and learn how awesome it is. So we're definitely getting back into that, which is really great.
Yeah, that's great. I've really enjoyed planning the group bike rides that we've done. We did a pizza crawl in May, and we did a ice cream crawl in June. And I
still
still see comments on Instagram asking when we're going to do another ice cream crawl.
Really? So there's
that's
demand
exciting.
for another ice cream one.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
awesome.
Some people couldn't make it to the last one we did because we changed the date, and I guess it didn't work out. But I think we could probably do another one before the end of the summer.
I think that needs to happen.
Yeah. And I know you guys were also the primary organizers of V72.
Yes.
Which is the vegan restaurant weekend.
Right.
As well, there was also before the pandemic, like you spoke to, like V72 conferences, like one day conference in Richmond, where you had like different speakers come, and I remember one year you even had like John Joseph visiting from out of town, which was super sweet. I got to meet him. That was super cool. He's a big role model for me. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more of those events as well.
Yeah, it was really fun being able to host those kinds of events, and we had Carol Adams, we had Dr. Neil Bernard, like you said, we had John Joseph, we had Gray, the performer. I think he's from Atlanta. And it was just, it brought so many people out, and I was like, yes, this is what's missing. This is what we're missing. And we always make our events free. That's always really crucial. We don't want to have any barriers. We try to always have those kind of events in a nice local place that's accessible to folks, especially with public transportation. So yeah, I'm excited about us starting to plan more things.
Definitely.
Thanks for watching Evolve Podcast. This episode is brought to you by our sponsors, True Nutrition. Use Evolve Podcast to get 5% off all True Nutrition supplements. I'm personally a fan of their soy isolate vegan protein powder, available in a variety of flavors and strengths from light to heavy. They also have non-vegan protein powders if that's not your thing. I recommend the cookies and cream flavor in heavy strength, and I add it to waffles, oatmeal, and protein shakes. They're delicious. Check out their wide range of supplements at affordable prices that are third-party tested and verified for content quality. They are able to provide such great prices because their supplements come direct from the manufacturer without any marketing gimmicks or fancy labels. Visit TrueNutrition.com to supplement your workouts and nutrition. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 10% off all weight train and athleticity gym gear and apparel. No matter what you need for your workouts, they have the gear to help you get it done. They have great clothes for the gym wear, for men and women. Visit weighttrain.com for all your gym gear needs. Last is not dead yet. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 15% off all clothing and accessories. The goat shorts and shirts are some of the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn, and they have the coolest designs. However, their drops are only available in limited quantities, so get your favorites while you can, and be on the lookout for other drops you're stoked on. Visit notdeadyet.com for clothing to remind the world you are not dead yet. Now, back to the show.
You mentioned before that you used to play in bands. No?
No.
Okay.
No.
But I know you're like really into punk and hardcore and stuff like that. And you like were friends with like people that played in like bands
Yes.
that were also vegan?
I sang in a cover band one time. It's
What-
Strange Matter.
What was it?
It was an L7 cover band. We were called Hell 7.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes, that's my one and only time.
Cool. Well, I would love to see another like cover band
Oh my
performance.
gosh, that would be so much fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun. Like I got the full experience of like what folks do in bands, like
Mm-hmm.
with practicing, and so it was really fun.
Yeah.
It was really cool. But I love going to shows. That is
Mhm.
like my passion after veganism.
Yeah.
It's just seeing bands play live has been one of my favorite things since I was a teenager.
One fundraiser that I did when I was in college that I really enjoyed planning was a Battle of the Bands. And that could be a really fun vegan action event.
That could.
Yeah.
That could. Oh,
It could be a fundraiser to like raise money for the organization or for like
Yes.
Porchlight Animal Sanctuary, something like that. We'll talk more about
I'm
that
trying
later.
to think if this was before you moved to Richmond, I'm not sure, but we had, it might have been our first V72,
Uh-huh.
but we had the vegan black metal chef here
Okay.
at Strange Matter.
I that was around the time that I moved here. I
Okay.
think I heard about that,
Yeah,
but I wasn't able to go.
that was an event we did charge for. We had bands play, and then he made something on stage, and like the whole thing, it was amazing.
Yeah,
That was
that's
really
cool.
fun. Yeah, a lot of people came out for that.
Mm-hmm. The vegan action team, they definitely know how to draw a crowd. Like,
Yes.
that's for sure. Like
Yeah.
you guys have put on great events. You bring in people that, you know, are nationally known and, you know, have a good social media following.
Yeah.
So major props to your team for that.
Thank you.
Looking ahead, what's in the works now for vegan action? Like, have you all been making any plans for any future events or like tabling at any events?
Yeah.
I know the Richmond Vegetarian Festival is coming up later this year.
Right. Of course, we'll be there.
Yep.
We do love tabling at vegetarian and vegan festivals, but we're really trying to table at festivals and events that aren't vegan or vegetarian associated.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we talked about this in one of our retreats, is that we want to be there and supportive and a part of the vegan community, of
Right.
course. But we also really want to try to reach out to folks that we might not otherwise.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so we tabled at the Bacon Festival last year, and a lot of people were like, "What?
Why are
And we
they
were-
here?"
Yeah, and we were giving out samples of TLTs. We
Uh-huh.
bought all these tempeh lettuce tomato sandwiches from a local restaurant, Harrison Street,
Yeah.
and
nice.
and cut them up, and we're passing out, and people were like, "This is amazing!" And a lot of people were like really nice,
Mhm.
We're like, "Wow, that's cool, you're here," and like we didn't get any hate, and you know, it was really cool.
That's awesome.
So we're really trying to have that like positive vegan exposure
Yeah.
to folks that we may not otherwise come across.
Yeah, I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really the most important audience, you know.
It is.
It is great to be at the vegan festivals, but, you know, you're not gonna, I mean, you might change people's minds there. You know, there's plenty of people who goes to those that are omnivores,
Of course,
or,
yeah.
you know, they're just vegan curious, that type of
Yes.
thing. Or they just want to eat some delicious vegan food for the
Yeah,
day.
definitely.
But yeah, the place where you're going to have the most impact is where most people aren't eating vegan,
Right, right.
And that is the best way to do that for
Yeah.
sure. So
We
major
also
props, yeah.
are trying to bridge that gap of like animal lovers
Mhm.
and choosing vegan. So we try to do a lot of events for like dog and cat rescues. We actually offer
Right.
grants for a lot of them have annual dinners or
Right.
fundraisers, and we actually have grants for organizations to provide a meal at their event. It has to be all vegan, and we pay for it. So it's one way we're trying to introduce people to vegan food, and like make that connection of like, you're an animal lover, you spend so much time and love and care to rescue dogs, trap cats and get them fixed, all these things. And what about if you just made a change in what you eat 3 times a day? That's a more compassionate way to live.
One thing I was curious about, as we've been talking about all these like positive ways that you're, promoting veganism and animal right advocacy. You mentioned in the past you would do protests, and protests absolutely can be positive, but sometimes they're viewed as negative.
Right.
Is protesting like something that your organization still does, or is that not so much a priority now?
It is not something we've done for quite a while. I would say probably close to 15 years. And part of that was having this bigger picture of wanting to normalize veganism. So, we have to make some of these tough choices sometimes.
Yeah.
But, especially me becoming vegan in 1995, we were like on the fringe. People were like, what the hell? That's crazy, that's bizarre, that's weird. And so we have really wanted to try to normalize veganism as much as possible. Not that protesting isn't normal.
Right.
And fortunately, there are other organizations that are holding and sponsoring protests. But we did want to just focus on reaching out to non-vegans as much as possible. And, after lots of board meetings, staff meetings, brainstorming, we realized that we wanted to focus on positive and be as approachable as possible. So it was a pretty difficult change, I would say, especially for me because of my background, with activism and being really, but I do see the benefits. I do, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that there's value to both.
Absolutely.
But people generally speaking are more receptive to a positive, friendly, approachable vegan than someone who's yelling at them for eating meat.
Yes, right. I've been the throwing red Kool-Aid on people very first. I've been that person. I have no regrets. And Vegan Action still stands for animal liberation, 100%. We talk about this on our website, but we don't promote bigger cages, more free range, anything like that. We just absolutely are for animal liberation as our core foundation. But as far as wanting to reach out to the public, we're keeping it posy. We're, trying to be accessible. So it's been an interesting dynamic, but it's working.
That's great.
Yeah.
So looking over the span of your life and your career up to this point, what would you say is your primary why, your reason, your purpose for the work that you do with Vegan Action?
Right. The main purpose is to get as many people to choose vegan as possible. That's the main purpose. 98% of animals that are killed on this planet are for food. So we see the greatest opportunity in food choice. So we even, when we're at a tabling event and someone that's I love eating meat, and we're like, okay, I grew up eating meat, I liked it, I made the choice not to do it. Of course, that's your choice. What if you decide not to do it twice a week? So we're kind of doing this negotiating and sharing recipes. We do free cooking demos. So the main goal is to get people to choose vegan as often as possible. And, for some folks, they don't like a label, and I get that. Especially if you're okay, I'm vegan, and then, I slipped up, or, I was at a family dinner. So some people are really hesitant to adopt that label, and we're like, okay, that's fine. What if you just eat vegan as often as you can? And so that's the core goal, and it's for animal rights, it's for environmentalism, it's for human health. As taxpayers, we are paying for people that are dying from diseases caused by eating animals.
Yeah.
So there are just all these externalities involved with people eating animals, in addition to it being a really poor choice.
Mm-hmm. So if someone is interested in eating more vegan, obviously there's tons of resources available online, but if they wanted to check out vegan.org, where should they go to get information?
Yeah, so we have a couple of really great pages on our website on transitioning into veganism, replacements, which is one of the biggest questions we get when we're tabling, like, how do you replace eggs when you're baking, you know? And like, oh my gosh, there's so many great replacements, but people haven't heard about them, or, you know, trying different cheeses. And so we have those resources. We of course have some awesome recipes and shopping guides. That's another thing. A lot of people are like, it's got to be so expensive to be vegan. It's like, no, I shop at the regular grocery store. I shop at Food Lion and Kroger. I can't afford to buy all of my groceries at Elwood Thompson's, and most people can't, or the specialty stores. So we try to debunk that too. And as much as it's awesome there's literally a replacement, a vegan replacement for every food item you could name.
Yeah.
There's even caviar. I finally tried the seaweed caviar. I've never had real caviar. I can't compare it, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
But there's literally a replacement for everything that, you know, anyone names. And I'm so grateful for those, but they are expensive because it's all about supply and demand.
Right.
So the demand for vegan products isn't as huge as non-vegan products. So they are more expensive, and a lot of those companies are small. So I'm grateful for all the meat and cheese and you name it replacements, but like at the end of the day, if you just eat like a really kind of whole foods, healthy, basic diet for the most part, without kind of all those other special things, it's very affordable and it's a lot healthier.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, my go-to meal on a plant-based diet is usually rice with spinach or kale. You know, sometimes I'll put salsa on it, and then I'll have some sort of vegan protein option, whether that's seitan. I'll do a TVP, textured vegetable protein crumble, but most often it's tofu. You know, cook that in my air fryer for like 20 or 30 minutes, super quick. And then, you know, you can put sauce on it, put some hot sauce, ketchup, mustard, whatever, and you're good to go. It's a great meal and very filling too.
Yeah, and beans are so cheap. I mean, I have like lentil tacos probably once a week. I have lentil soup. I make a really great tofu potato chowder. And all of these things are just like the basic staples. You know, staples and vegetables and fruits are what I'm buying and eating the majority of the time. And then I'll treat myself to like a light life hot dog every now and then. You know?
Great for 4th of July.
Exactly. Yes. So so that's a big part of what we want to do, is like show folks it's easy, it's affordable, it's fun to learn how to cook different things that you didn't grow up cooking, and you know, kind of that approach.
Yeah, like I liked cooking when I was growing up. But after I became vegan, I just developed a whole new appreciation for food. Because, you know, you're not only being more intentional about the food that you're eating and like what you're buying, and you have to like read labels to make sure it actually is vegan, making sure it has that Vegan Action logo on it or not. But also like the whole world of food opens up when you're, you know, thinking more about like what is available to you, and you just realize that there are so many options that you didn't consider as quote unquote vegan, and it just makes the art of cooking so much more creative, and it's been a really fun way for me to express my creativity in that different way too.
Same here.
Yeah. So, when you're not doing Vegan Action, movement is an important part of well managed, vegan lifestyle as well. Is there any way in particular that you like to move and exercise to be healthy?
I love going on hikes, especially around the river, but like specifically driving to different parks and going for hikes. One of my dogs loves going with me. I love swimming. And just being out in nature as much as possible. That's where I enjoy exercising the most. So walking and hiking.
Same here.
Yeah.
Love going on hikes. Also, in the past few years, I've gotten really into trail running and trail biking. Mountain biking, it might be too extreme to say that because I don't actually have a mountain bike, but I have started riding on like some of the trails by the river, and it's an adventure. It's a fun time. Yeah. taking a few falls for sure, but definitely getting the hang of it. So if people want to connect with you and Vegan Action, where should they do that?
I would love that. So of course we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram, we have our website. All of those have ways to connect. Or you can even email vegan@vegan.org.
Right.
And that'll make its way to me.
Awesome.
And I'll be able to respond.
Before we let you go, I have a couple more questions.
Oh, please.
Starting with our PMA Warrior of the Week. Who is someone who inspires you to keep a positive mindset?
I'm going to say my son, Arrow.
Yeah.
He's 18. He is vegan by choice. He's a really awesome human being. And just having this really rad kid in my life is definitely an inspiration for me to be like super positive and be creative about cooking. And it's a nice reminder of like, I want to make sure I'm a good role model too,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He just graduated high school,
He
right?
did. Yeah.
Congrats to him.
Yeah.
I know you guys celebrated with a trip to Costa Rica.
Yes.
How was that trip?
It was so incredible. We saw so many plants and animals that, of course, we've never seen before. It was very easy to eat vegan there, which was great. I mean, I had researched ahead of time, but that was really nice. And we did get to go to this really cool sanctuary. Some people use the word sanctuary loosely. So there are a lot of sanctuaries that really just are like a petting zoo. So we researched and found this really cool sanctuary that rescues, rehabs, and releases animals that are native to Costa Rica. So that was also really extra special.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was the best thing that you ate there, if you can recall?
Yes. Okay, so there's this specific sauce. It's the sauce of Costa Rica, and I don't remember the name. I finally found it at an international market here.
Nice.
But like, seriously, beans, rice, and plantains, which is like the meal.
Yeah.
Technically, the meal of Costa Rica is beans, rice, and egg, and then plantains on the side. So of course we didn't get the egg, but the beans and rice were just so savory and flavorful, and I finally found out why. And it's this specific sauce. I think they call it a salsa. That just made it so amazing. So yeah.
Can you describe the sauce? Like what is it like?
Yeah. So the ingredients are really interesting. Like I remember there was like, once I found it and was able to buy it, it was like cabbage juice. So there's like, it's like got some kind of sweet and savory to it. So it's not spicy at all.
Okay, interesting.
So I got to add my tapatio, of course, too, because I got to get the spicy. But yeah, so it's just this like really vegetable-rich, savory sauce. So it probably is just all these concentrated vegetables, like simmered down, and it's really amazing. And I wish I could remember the name, but I can't.
It will remain a mystery.
It will.
Next is our mindset moment. What is a quote, tip, or phrase that you use to help you stay positive in difficult circumstances?
I'm going to just say it's one word, and
Okay.
I actually have it tattooed on my body, and it's hope. Because you know, being in the animal rights movement for so long and seeing so many documentaries, it can be very emotionally heavy and sad and depressing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we table, people come up to the table and be like, I used to be vegan. And I'm like, it like hurts my soul a bit. So I just have this reminder of hope, like of hoping for things to be better for the animals and for the earth and for everybody that lives on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the people who are a part of it as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Krissi. I really enjoyed our conversation.
It was really fun.
Always great to sit down with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Of course.
Thanks for watching Evolved Podcast. Follow at evolvedpodcast.co on Instagram for weekly updates. Subscribe to Evolved Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and like your favorite episodes. Production and editing by Joe Fitzpatrick. Our theme music, Endless Cruise, is written and performed by Fingers, spelled F1NG3RS.